in the music department, you always want to make sure your kids are enjoying those other kind of things that every kid likes to enjoy, like music class. Jambox was designed by someone who has a very physical disability, and he could no longer like press all the keys, or he couldn't strum his guitar. So this all works off of breath support. I did use this with a student with cerebral palsy, and she loved it. You can actually design this to, and all the links are in there. And I know we're starting to run low on time, so we'll let you guys explore on your own. But what Jambox allows you to do is it runs this instrument through a computer, so you could do guitars, or you could do, in her case, she wanted to play the recorder like every other fourth grader, but she couldn't finger it. This held it in place. She blew into it. We made sure that the computer was set to recorder, and she could play the songs like everyone else. If you've never done something called Makey Makey, this is a great thing it allows you to create just about anything. You could take a banana and make it a piano, or whatever you want to make is kind of cool. And I added some more in there. You want to talk about a few of the ones you threw in?
Here's
There's
the
a Skoog.
Skoog, which you can just, gross motor movements, punch, hit. You can set how the activation, the pressure that you need in order to push these. But the Skoog app has all these different colors. And with the Skoog app, you can just, on an iPad, you can play with the app, and that's free. And then we did a huge AD project last year. Can't even stress how huge it was. But we collaborated with our whole a select group from our music department that was interested in having accessible tools. And we spent a big amount of money buying them accessible musical instruments and kits for most of our classrooms. Skoogs came out of that. We got jam boxes, we got a lot of stuff, even just, grips for rhythm sticks, so they can hold on and build those up. We had a music teacher that was like, I want flexible seating. Can you buy some balls for therapy balls for in my classroom? So we did all of that. But one of the things that they mentioned is that music is not just playing instruments. That's what I was told over and over and over and over through all these meetings. And they wanted ways to teach the content to these kids, because I think we do find ways to include a lot of our students, maybe with more significant intellectual disabilities, into music. That's a little bit easier thing. We can give them a tambourine and they can shake it. But they wanted them to also, because they were included with their regular ed peers, they wanted them to be able to participate in that learning as well. So we found this free study group, and it is phenomenal. They meet for about 2 or 3 months. It was a while, and about every other Saturday for almost the whole day. It's tons of free learning from the Berklee College of Music, and they call it their special needs study group. And our music educators learned so much. And so they talk about and learn more about autism. They had a speech language pathologist who presented. They had OTs who presented. They had teachers, and they would just really talk. They talked about neurodiversity. We enjoyed Dr. Rhoda Bernard, who coordinates all of this, so much that we actually paid to have her come in and do a neurodiversity training for all of our specialist teachers, art, music, and gym at the beginning of the school year. So it's free, which is phenomenal, and it's just great. This came out of it. They mentioned lesson picks in the study group a lot. And so when we met with our music teachers at the beginning of the school year, we talked about how can you use, and we gave all of our music teachers access to lesson picks so they can adapt on their own and they can create some of these supports. They can have music notes and color them the same as the boom whackers by creating custom symbols. They can add letters to the notes to help. And so this is an example of where our students may write their own song by having different notes on here, and then using Google Slides or a Jamboard and being able to drag those around the screen. We created a Chutes and Ladders game where in lesson picks, where, you know, you might have musical instruments and you can move your little piece around the board. Again, trying to make that learning engaging and fun, and giving our teachers the tools. And this is just a great article. I'm just going to graze over it because we have a little bit of time left. You know, just talking about how you might be able to plan with UDL and music.
Don't forget about art. You know, a lot of our students do great in art. The first one there is a device where you actually put it on your wheelchair, and as the students move their wheelchair around, they can draw, they can paint. It's just really kind of cool, and you can actually rig this up. I used a flagpole, what do you want to call it? It's the holder that you put on your house that you put a flagpole in, that I actually attached that to a wheelchair and put that great big chalk in there. And the student was able then to draw with their wheelchair just by moving their chair around. There's links in there to some homemade tools. If you've never used a recipe in an iPad, you can actually set a bunch of commands in your iPad to do something like take a picture. So a student in a power chair could be driving along, hit a single switch, and it will then open the camera, take the picture, you know, make the click, do all those things that are multiple step. But so a student who is very, very physically involved could actually participate in all these art classes and do some incredible work. It's just
Well, I was
really
even
neat.
thinking, Mike Hipple, who joins us a lot, he's a gentleman that has cerebral palsy and uses an AEC device. And he's talked a lot about how he really loved participating in extracurriculars too. And that was really important to him. And so I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking about this presentation. You know, it's not just the academics, but also finding ways that we can make accommodations and adapt for some of those extracurricular, like how great I did yearbook in high school. And so how great would it be, like, yes, the student may not be able to crop a picture for yearbook, but can they help pick out which picture do you like, you know, like, and point. I mean, there's lots of different ways that we can get them involved meaningfully. You know, there's art clubs that are out there. You know, there's just so many different things that I think we need to think about, not just always those academic areas. And, you know, like music and art, those are just such great ways to include our students, and you know, just get those peer relationships, because when I think about inclusion, I just really think about those meaningful peer relationships.
And again, that goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, having, you know, we can't teach empathy. But if we keep our kids segregated all the time, they'll never know how to react to other people. And think about that story I told in the beginning about the mental health, and the cell phones. I mean, all it was a change of perspective. It didn't change anything else, but it's like, oh, check it on the phone, no big deal. Don't forget about PE. My daughter, who's an adaptive PE teacher, would be like, oh, don't forget. In the lower left-hand corner, and these are all links that you can explore later, it actually has a basketball that has a print of a hand on there, and it shows the person where exactly to put their hand into, spread out their fingers, so that they can get that idea on how to push, because maybe they just don't understand the verbal comments that are coming to them. Then the one in the middle there is, you know, a ramp for someone who may be bowling, who's in a wheelchair that can't support. And then the other picture there is about someone who's in a wheelchair who has a baseball bat, you know, and you can still do all kinds of things. And with the Olympics coming up, you know, I Alicia, love to show my students all the Paralympics things too, because it doesn't matter, you know, what your body looks like. If you can get it to do some great things, that's incredible. So, and again, you know, getting kids involved and making these things for other kids too, I think is just a great way for us to get math and science and engineering into everything that we do, and increasing that empathy with kids. We did put a bunch of references in there so that you have the references to everything that we've done today. I know we went through a whole lot. We have just a couple of minutes. Is there anyone who wants to add something that they've used, or an experience that they've had? Or a question about a content area? I think we hit most of them. Well, as you're all thinking, there's one last quick story. Again, always remember to think about what is a goal for your classroom. I was in a biology classroom and they're like, well, we can't have these kids in here who can't read, who can't. And they were talking about setting up a lab. And I said, these kids, they can't even put their name on it or put everybody's name in the group on their lab partner's sheet. And I'm like, so that's the goal. Everyone has to be able to put their name on. And she's like, yes. And I'm like, great. So we all sat down in a circle. I said, Adam, put your name on the paper, pass your paper to the right. Everyone keep passing it and writing your own name on there. At the end, everyone's name was on the paper and they were able to get to the lab and get things done. But if they weren't in that classroom, they wouldn't have learned that content. So by keeping kids in there, God bless you, by keeping kids in classrooms, that's what's important. We do have something in the chat. K3
I didn't even
kiddos
realize I
use-
was off mute. I'm so sorry. But that
That's
was my
okay.
question in the chat.
Okay, well, Julia, see, are there any apps that you suggest for reading PDFs or text? Oh, yeah, for young kids, I am a big believer in Snap and Read. I think Snap and Read is a great one. Text Help, of course, Read Write is also another good one that's used. Immersive Reader is free. If you're using iPads, use what's built into your iPad. You know, your iPad will read on its own. You just have to go and set up the accessibility apps.
Here's Immersive Reader. I had that one too up to show and I didn't. I love Immersive Reader. I think it's amazing. I think it sounds great. They have a great app on in the App Store, their Edge browser. Instead of using the Chrome browser, you can, or the Safari browser, you can use the Microsoft Edge browser, and Immersive Reader will work on your iDevices.
If you use Seesaw, Seesaw has all those built-in things that will read. Amy, what's the extract text from a picture? That's a newer feature in iOS. Can you explain that?
Oops, I think I'm off mute now. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was being a jerk. Oh, okay. So what you can do is if you take, and it's not going to work for a super long document, but if you take a picture and put it in your iOS library, and there is a small button that VoiceOver recognizes it if you can't see, but I think it looks like a box that has lines in it. I think that's what it's called. And it makes it so that
Ellery,
the text-
including 700 ideas.
Sorry, I'm in it right now.
yeah, so you can select that text and copy and paste it and pull it out, but you can also, there's different extracting text apps that you can use too, but I like that one because it's simple and it doesn't require a whole lot of bells and whistles, and it's relatively accurate.
Great, thanks for sharing. So Julia, try what's in your iPad first. Again, looking at that universal design for learning. Thanks for sharing that, Amy. Anyone else?
There are also built-in features where you can select a word and it will read a word on iDevices as well.
Oh yeah, that works from the picture too. I forgot about that one. I don't have it enabled on my phone because I hardly ever use it, but yeah, you're right. I think that's available too in there. So you don't even have to copy and paste it.
Yeah, and she's asking specifically for PDFs, and that's why I love Snap and Read, because it'll read anything. You take a photo of it and poof, it's going to read. Go Worksheet Maker is for young kids too. That's a great one that's going to read anything. And again, that's an app for an iPad. I love that little app.
Seeing AI is free. It's meant for more of your blind or VI kids, but again, it's free. So it's worth trying, and that you can just snap a picture of that. If you're using Microsoft Lens is one that works if your school is using Microsoft. And I think even if they're not, I think that's a free one you can use.